Testing, testing. Good morning. Welcome to the Maryland Public Service Commission's administrative meeting for August 23rd, 2023. And the first thing we have are minutes from our meeting of previous meeting. So I make a motion we approve the minutes from the August 9th meeting. Start with Commissioner Sushman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barve?
Aye.
Commissioner Richard?
Aye.
I vote aye. Minutes are adopted. Mr. Secretary.
Morning, Mr. Chair. At the outset, we will be deferring item 14 on the consent agenda. There are 15 other items on the consent agenda. Items 1 through 6 are weather station designations from Columbia Gas of Maryland, Inc., Hagerstown Light Department, Southern Maryland Electric Cooperative, Inc., Elkton Gas Company, Chesapeake Utilities Corporation, and Sandpiper Energy, Inc. Item number 7 is an application from Catalyst Power and Gas, Inc. for a license to supply electricity. Item number 6 is an interconnection agreement between Armstrong Telephone Company and Level 3 Communications, LLC. Item number 9 is a joint application from ExtaNet Asset Entity, LLC and ExtaNet Systems, LLC for approval to transfer certain assets between them. Item number 10 is a notice of name change from Metropolitan Telecommunications of Maryland, Inc. Item number 11 consists of revised tariff pages from Core Communications, Inc. Item number 12 is a withdrawal of GetGo Communications LLC's certification of authority to operate in Maryland. Item number 13 is a notice from Boomerang Wireless LLC, DBA, and Touch Wireless of an update to its underlying carrier agreement. Item number 14 is a notice from Golf Network Technologies Maryland, Inc. of abandonment of its license. And finally, item number 16 is a request from Metropolitan Telecommunications of Maryland, Inc. to withdraw its access service tariff.
Okay, so regarding items 1 through 6, I move that we accept the filings for the weather station designation by Columbia Gas of Maryland, Inc., Hagerstown Light Department, Southern Maryland Electric Cooperative, Elkton Gas Company, Chesapeake Utilities Corporation, and Sandpiper Energy, Inc. I move that we approve the weather station designations for the purpose of determining when there is extreme weather period that requires restrictions on electricity and natural gas service under COMAR Regulation 20.31.03.03 and COMAR Regulation 20.31.03.04. The vote will start with Commissioner Sushman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barve.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. Item number 7, I move that we grant the company a license to operate as an electricity supplier in Maryland for the customer classes and service territories as applied for and recommended by staff. I further move that we direct the company to provide marketing materials specific to its Maryland operations to the commission staff and 30 days prior to the utilization of these materials in the state of Maryland. And finally, I move to direct the company to file notice with the commission within 30 days of any changes to the information that was in the application. Commissioner Sushman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barve.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. Regarding item 8, I move that we approve the interconnection agreement 10 days after a 30-day comment period unless adverse comments are filed. Commissioner Sushman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barve.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. Item 9, I move that we note the filing. Commissioner Sushman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barve.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. Item number 10, I move that we note the change in the company's name. The vote will start with Commissioner Sushman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barve.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. Item 11, I move that we accept the tariff revisions with a filing date, with an effective date of August 23rd, 2023. Commissioner Sushman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barve.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. Item 12, I move that we rescind GetGo Communications LLC's authority to operate in the state of Maryland effective August 23rd, 2023. Commissioner Sushman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barve.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. Item 13, I move that we note the filing by Boomerang Wireless LLC. Commissioner Sushman?
Just some clarity, is that the,
No, this is.
Okay.
We deferred that.
okay,
so.
aye.
Commissioner Barve?
Aye.
Commissioner Richard?
Aye.
I vote aye. Item 15, I move that we note the filing by Goff Network Technologies Maryland, Inc. To abandon its license. Commissioner Sushman?
Aye.
Commissioner Barve?
Aye.
Commissioner Richard?
Aye.
I vote aye. And finally, item 16, I move that we grant the company's request to withdraw the company's access tariff, PSC tariff number 1. Commissioner Sushman?
Aye.
Commissioner Barve?
Aye.
Commissioner Richard?
Aye.
I vote aye.
Mr. Chair, the administrative agenda, item number 17, is a request from Altus Power LLC and Synergen Panorama 2 LLC to extend its operational deadline.
Ruthie Herman, Assistant Staff Counsel on behalf of staff. Synergen Panorama 2 LLC requests a 12-month extension of the operational deadline for community solar energy generating system. The entity requests an extension from January 25th, 2024 to January 25th, 2025. Staff recommends the Commission allow the extension as requested. With me in the audience for questions is Drew McAuliffe of staff. The entity is represented by counsel and appears today at the other podium.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Barve?
Yeah, just a quick question. I want to confirm that local opposition wasn't a part of the delay. It didn't appear to be in the document.
Not to my knowledge.
So actually, David, why don't you introduce yourself for the record? So.
David Bugelman's on behalf of the project, and there was no local opposition. This is a rooftop solar project.
Okay. Yeah, I figured, but I just wanted to make it clear, and I wanted some people in the state of Maryland to know that members of the commission are looking at that sort of thing. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Any other questions? Oh, Commissioner Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I just ask staff, and this will, I think, applies to all the community solar projects today. You do note in your buck sheet that that while the staff recommends the commission approve the company's request, the company may be subject to new regulations. Can you just help me understand that just a little bit, because where I really want to go with this, I mean, this has been a long road for a lot of these projects. A lot of investments have been made, costs, and gone through a lot of regulatory time. So is there something we should be concerned about as far as or is there something we can do to relieve any uncertainty at this stage that there may be a problem with the regulation? Anyway, that's my question. I'm just concerned about this point here.
Thank you, Commissioner Richard. So perhaps I can answer it this way. The next step is for the Commission to adopt revised regulations, and they're being worked on by the technical staff. And that was required by the statute that passed last session and went into effect July 1.
Okay. But again, is there any concern we should have about these pending new regulations, about how they may impact these three projects that we're going to be talking about today?
Sure. Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Drew McAuliffe on behalf of staff. So we put that kind of caveat in there because obviously the program is permanent now, and the regulations have not been filed yet. So how we treat programs that are projects that were filed under the pilot, but that keep deferring, their start date to when the permanent program begins. That it's just unclear how that will be handled at this time. So we just kind of put that caveat in there to note that. Because again, the regulations have not been finalized, so how we're going to treat pilot programs that aren't even operational yet once the permanent program gets up and running is still a question.
Okay, but today's extension should provide some certainty to these projects that they can move forward,
It should, but again, if they start extending beyond the start of the permanent program, there could possibly be some ramifications of that.
Okay, is there anything we can do about that today to provide some certainty to these projects?
I don't believe that there is. Without the regulations being finalized yet, the new bill, I do not believe, had any specific language about how this situation would be treated. So it's hard to say if at this time we could give kind of certainty to how that would be handled.
I can provide some additional context, Your Honor. Under the permanent program legislation, there's language that says that projects on the pilot program queue automatically transition to the permanent program queue. So I think that's an important aspect of that statute that does provide a significant amount of certainty. There are some questions that are going to be faced by all projects. It's not really a question, it's just a fact where, again, under the permanent program legislation, if a project's not constructed under the pilot, arguably, they'll be subject to the new requirements of the permanent program, for instance, the 40% LMI minimum requirement for all projects, things like that. But those are, issues and factors that have to be worked through by all projects. Granting this extension, isn't unique to this project with respect to transitioning to the permanent program. So.
Okay, good. So you don't have any concerns today about this transition to a permanent program and how it might impact your project?
No, Your Honor.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any other?
So just to follow up on Commissioner Richards' question, so from your filing, I get the sense that you ran into a supply chain issue. But is there anything that this is an opportunity for you to let us know if that you anticipate or are concerned about any other impediments to getting this project off the ground?
Yeah. Well, obviously, the big issue here were supply chain issues. As we said in our filing, this developer did try to work with an alternative supplier, which would have been able to supply equipment in the project's estimation in time to be able to achieve the existing deadline. The problem is that BG has a preferred vendor list. I'm not familiar with why that is so and why they're inflexible. That could be a question for future proceeding. I don't know if we can sort that out here, but that's really the holdup. There are certain vendors they had to use when they had to switch to that vendor list to push things into next year. So it certainly is an issue. The Turning Point request I'm going to handle 2 items from now faces the exact same issue. So it could be something the commission would want to look at. It's just difficult to do in the context of an individual request like this.
Okay, thank you.
So I take it nobody's here from BG&E, right? All right. So regarding this vendor list, maybe staff could inquire as to why they have that and get an explanation from the company regarding that. So. Okay, so no other questions. I move that we grant the requested waiver and extend the operational deadline for Altus Power's community solar project from January 25th, 2024 to January 25th, 2025. Commissioner Sussman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbe.
Aye.
Commissioner Richards.
Aye.
I vote aye.
Mr. Chair, item number 18 is a request from Little Elk Solar LLC to extend its operational deadline.
Ruthie Herman, Assistant Staff Counsel, on behalf of staff. Little Elk Solar requests a 12-month extension of the operational deadline for the community solar energy generating system. The entity requests an extension from January 25th, 2024 to January 25th, 2025. Staff recommends that the Commission allow the extension as requested. With me at the podium is Drew McAuliffe of technical staff. Please note the entity's name is Little Elk Solar. There was a typo in 2 places on the buck sheet where it said Little Neck, but the proper name is Little Elk Solar. The entity is represented by counsel and appears today at the other podium. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Honorable Commissioners. Maggie Witherup from Witherup Allen Law on behalf of the applicant Little Elk Solar LLC. With me today is Mr. Tim Ryan, who's the Director of Finance for the project developer, BQ Energy. We also have Ms. Bridget Leahy, who is internal counsel for BQ Energy, and Ava Grumblatt, who is the Assistant Director of Permitting for BQ Energy. And we also have Mr. Tom Previs, who is a representative of the landowner here, and Ms. Maria Lino, who's an associate with my office.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just curious. I know that I saw that in January, Little Elk Energy provided a anticipated schedule for activity, and I'm just curious to know whether the June through August items, there's one that's June through August for an EPA MDE review, July for an interconnection agreement with Delmarva Power and Light, and an August milestone for designating engineering, procurement, construction. I was wondering if those were, oh, there's another one. Well, it's partial, July through September for engineering. I'm just curious to know whether those milestones were met.
Thank you, Commissioner Barva. Yes, the project is still on track, consistent with the schedule that we provided. EPA and MDE have given us comments on their work plan. They've given us a minor clarification request that we expect to be able to deal with very easily. They want to see final construction drawings before they finally approve of the work plan, but we believe that's fully on track. The company has submitted and signed an interconnection agreement with Delmarva. They have not yet paid for that, but the payment is not yet due until November, but we anticipate that is on track. And with respect to designating the EPC contractor, they have identified the contractor and are discussing the contract terms. So yes, we do anticipate that the project still can be completed and commercially operational in the second quarter of 2024. However, we are requesting a full 1-year extension just to avoid the having to come back here and ask for an additional extension.
Got it. Thank you very much. I do have one other question, and it's really not on the topic here, but I'm curious. What is the anticipated output from this plan? Do you know? I'm just curious. It's not really relevant. I'm just curious.
It is a relatively small project. It is 625 kilowatts, I believe.
Okay.
625 kilowatts AC. That's great.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So I did just, I'm not going to repeat what we put in our request, but I did want to highlight just a few points which I think go to the good cause here. And, first, and I think most importantly, is that this is not just an ordinary community solar project site. This is not even just a typical brownfield site. This is a federal Superfund site, which means that it has been designated on the national priorities list by EPA as a priority for cleanup for the federal government. And EPA has been working with a group of responsible parties and with the Maryland Department of the Environment to clean up this site. And it has been a fairly complicated remediation. Among other things, there's a stream that goes right alongside the site that had contaminated sediments from the VOCs from the site, volatile organic compounds. The responsible party had to clean up the contaminated sediments, and they actually put a liner underneath the stream to keep the clean water from that's flowing down the stream from mixing with the contaminated groundwater at the site. And they are actively treating contaminated groundwater at the site. And that's going to continue for many years into the future. And we anticipate about half of the electricity generated from this project will go to run that groundwater treatment plant. The landowner will be a subscriber to the community solar program. And that will provide a huge benefit for the site. Just by virtue of the remediation and nature of doing this project on a Superfund site, it's been a complicated process, and we've had to work with EPA and MDE. And unfortunately, we are not able to make the January deadline. But I think this is in the best interest of the local community, which supports the project. It is also important to promote environmental justice initiatives. This community, it's a rural residential community surrounding this site. They have been negatively impacted by having this Superfund site right in their neighborhood, and this is going to be providing a positive benefit to those residents. After years of negative impacts, now this is something that's going to be a positive impact for the community. So both the local government and the community support the project, and we think it is important to promote environmental justice initiatives, which is a priority for the state of Maryland as well as this administration. And so we think this is a perfect use for the site, and we just need a little more time to bring it into reality. And so I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Ryan, who wanted to say a few words to the commission, and then we're happy to take any questions.
If I can just ask one other question.
Sure.
So the size of the facility now is capped at 600 kilowatts, is that, or 600? Is there an opportunity to grow the size of the facility at some later date?
I'll let you address that. I don't believe so.
No, not really. The site is, will be fully built out with solar project. On the Superfund site, it's only about 2 acres.
Okay.
It's been, there's rubble underneath, and it's been paved with asphalt. There really isn't any other use, but we'll use the entire usable surface
Okay,
of the
thank you.
site. So BQ Energy is the owner of the project. BQ has started to develop renewable energy on brownfields and landfills and that kind of site. We successfully developed the Annapolis Solar Project in Anne Arundel County, which is the largest landfill solar project in the country now.
Pardon me, is that the one near Route 50?
It's at the corner of 50 and 97, sort of inside.
Oh, so you, okay. I wondered
off
who
of,
that was.
Defense Highway. Yeah,
Okay.
we developed that project. It's now owned by Falk Energy.
Okay, thank you.
This is as I said, it's before, it's a relatively small site. Solar is a perfect use. BQ Energy last year was acquired. We merged into a company called Clean Capital, who owns and operates particularly smaller solar projects. They own several projects in the state of Maryland that are net metering. They're working on some community solar projects, and these are projects that are in operation or under construction or under development. So we found a good partner for this project. We're all excited about getting it completed. We have the resources to do that. As Maggie said, we just need a little more time to complete it.
Well, actually, while you're there, so I know there's been discussion about Superfund sites being ideal locations for solar projects since there's limits as to what you can do with them.
That's right.
I guess my question is there, problems with developing Superfund sites that lead to this long process to get the project up and running, or was the problems in this one sort of particular to the circumstances of this particular site?
It's a good question. Some of each.
Okay.
Superfund sites typically have an ownership group of potentially responsible parties. So it's multiple parties that are essentially the landowner that Attorney Previs represents. They're excited about this opportunity and turning it into productive use. But that makes it more complicated. Plus, it's MDE and Environmental Protection Agency, so that adds another layer of permitting diligence to go through that you don't have in another kind of a project. So the Annapolis project, for instance, was not federal. We worked through the county and the state on that one.
So I guess the upshot of my question is, do there need to be changes in either MDE or EPA's process and sort of turning this land over to facilitate development of solar projects? Not that there's anything that we can directly do, but I'm not opposed to making suggestions to the two of them if there's some way to help facilitate development of solar on Superfund sites.
So I would say that the challenges that this project has faced is not unique to this site. I would think that they would be encountered in most Superfund sites, and I think part of the issue is that there are typically activity and use restrictions placed on the properties for any property where there is existing contamination that is left in place. And I would think that anything that could be done to incentivize redevelopment of brownfields and Superfund sites would be helpful to developers and help encourage that. Here, I think the deadlines are just very difficult for community solar projects to meet on a Superfund site. But, certainly if there's anything that EPA and MDE can do to help encourage that redevelopment. They do recognize that renewable energy is a good use for Superfund sites, and they do encourage that. But as far as regulations go, I'm not sure what can be done to help encourage it further.
All right, well, let me make one suggestion. So another action that was taken by the General Assembly last year was creation of a task force to study the issue of incentives for solar siting. Now, I think the original idea was to basically look at the tax code, but it's been expanded to consider all sorts of issues. You may want to contact the director of the Maryland Energy Administration because he's the individual overseeing that task force, and maybe add this to the list of items that they sort of look at. If you think there's some, particularly Maryland-related change, either legislatively or regulation, that would help facilitate location of solar on Superfund sites, and maybe they can put that as part of their report.
That's a good suggestion. Thank
Okay,
you.
all right.
Mr. Chair, well, I'm actually, and maybe this is a question for staff as you're working through the draft regulations, is there an opportunity to put in extra time for proposals for projects that are located on a Superfund site? Would that it seems like that might actually help, and you have unique challenges that are not in place for a greenfield site. So would that make sense? So what is the deadline now? Do we have in the draft regulations? Do you have a deadline now?
I'm not sure what deadline you could be referring to, but
Well, you're subject to, what's your deadline now for citing the project before the statute was enacted, when it was still a pilot project? You had
I think the question she's trying to find, so when they file these applications, they put in an operational date. So is that triggered by something that we require, or is that something the project puts forward?
The current regulations require it to be operational within 24 months of submission of a completed application.
Okay.
And you're allowed to get your request up to an additional year from the utility by payment of an additional fee. So if those deadlines could be relaxed for Superfund and other brownfields projects,
Right.
that would be very helpful.
That's my suggestion. So is that something that you guys can be working on and putting together your draft regulations?
Yeah, it's definitely something we could look at. So those were specifically for the pilot. So obviously with the permit.
Right, no, I understand that. That's why I was asking
So
staff.
yeah, no, that's
So-
something we could look at
Right.
for the permanent program.
Okay,
Sure.
and that seems to make sense to me. If you're in a situation where you're dealing with other agencies, there's going to be delays. That's inherent in the project. Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other questions? All right, with that, I move that we grant the requested waiver and extend the operational deadline for Little Neck Solar Community
Little
Sol-
Elk. Little Elk.
Little Elk, yeah.
Pardon
that's
me.
right.
Sorry about
Everyone
that.
made
Thank
the
you.
connection, and I didn't make the correction. Little Elk Solar LLC from January 18th, 2024 to January 18th, 2025. Commissioner Sussman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbe. Aye. Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye.
Mr. Chair, item 19 is another request, this time from TPE MDHO93 LLC to extend its operational deadline.
Ruthie Herman, Assistant Staff Counsel, on behalf of staff, TPEMD HO93 LLC, requests an extension of the operational deadline for the community solar energy generating system. The entity requests an extension from January 18th, 2024 until February 28th, 2025. Staff recommends the commission allow the extension. With me at the podium is Drew McAuliffe of the technical staff. The entity is represented by counsel, and they appear at the other podium today. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I have some questions.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I read the whole thing, and I'm sure I'm not looking at it correctly. So I'm just curious if you can clarify some aspects of the arrangement here. I understand that TPE has something that was described as an investment partner, and what I want to know is what the relationship is, and are they also a vendor for supplying equipment that is part of the delay? That's what I want to know.
Sure, I'll answer that question. David Bugelman's on behalf of TPMD HO 93 LLC. Turning Point is a pre-construction developer. So typically what they do is they permit the project, and then another developer will acquire the project and build it. So it's not a vendor, it's just the company that will actually make this project, finance it, and make it happen. That's what that is referring to.
So they're the owner. Are they? I mean, do they own what? Do they own a major portion of the ownership structure of the LLC, or all of it, or a little bit? I'm just curious.
For that question, I'll hand it over to Mr. Joe Rosenberg from the company. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Good morning, Joe Rosenberg, Director of Business Development at Turning Point Energy. Yes, so to answer your question, we do all the work from the very beginning of working with the landowner to developing the project, to getting the project interconnected. When the project reaches notice to proceed, construction ready, we partner with a select few investors who then take the project through financing and own operate the project.
Okay, so you're not a supplier of any of the equipment that is in question here as having delayed the...
No, we are not a supplier. We work with BG&E. They're the vendor. They provide us with the preferred vendor list we go to, and then we procure from that list.
Have you worked with this procured vendor list a lot?
Yeah.
Yes, so every utility has a preferred vendor list that we have to work through. So yes, we do have to go through that.
So is that a source of problem, or is it just that we have a global... The excuse du jour is supply chain. Everybody uses it now in all of American industry, and so I'm just curious to know whether this is just a part of the broader American phenomenon of difficult supply chains, or if there's something unique about this vendor list.
I think that, unfortunately, it was the pandemic that caused this and exacerbated the problem. I mean, they have I think there's probably 8 different companies that we can procure from that list, and we tried to go through all of them, and it was initially the 3 or 4 months that we thought we were going to get, and then ultimately that expanded to the 15 to 18 months. So we did contact all the various providers on that list, and it was the same answer every single time.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm good.
Well, actually, Mr. Bugelman, I mean, since this issue about the vendor list has come up, so I take it each utility has its own preferred vendor list.
That's correct.
And so they make the decisions who gets on that list. You don't have any input into that, right?
I have no input as to how they develop that list. As was indicated for the previous request I just handled, that developer was able to identify a supplier that would have been able to supply the equipment sooner. I don't know why that vendor is not on the utilities list. Frankly, I'm not aware of how they developed that. But it certainly is something the commission could look into, see if there's a way to speed up the procurement of that equipment.
So I guess, for staff, why don't we inquire as to, I mean, I don't want to necessarily, rethink their reasons for their vendor list, but let's at least find out, how they develop the vendor list, who gets on there and things like that, and whether or not there's any process for the developers to either suggest a vendor and particularly in these situations where they go to everybody on the vendor list and they're not available for whatever reason, what's the option then? Because it seems to me, having a situation where you're stuck to the vendor list and none of these people are available kind of puts them between the rock and a hard place. So if we can inquire as to how this list got developed and what's the rationale behind it, I think it'd be helpful to us. So, any other questions? Okay, with that, I move that we grant the requested waiver and extend the operational deadline for TPE MD HO 93 LLC project from January 18th, 2024 to February 28th, 2025. Commissioner Sussman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbe.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye.
Mr. Chair, items 20 and 22 are revised tariff pages updating purchase of receivables language in the supplier coordination tariffs of Delmarva Power and Light and Potomac Electric Power Company.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Anson Justy on behalf of staff. On May 19th, 2023, Potomac Electric Power Company and Delmarva Power and Light Company filed updates to their POR discount rates. The filings were heard and approved at the June 21st, 2023 administrative hearing. Upon submitting clean copies of the updated POR rates, the companies identified that the rate schedule RTOUP was not written into the tariff language alongside the other residential rate schedules, indicating that it is affected by the POR rate when applicable, although it conceptually is. And the POR rate has been correctly getting applied to that rate schedule. The companies have made these filings to correct the oversight. For PEPCO, staff and the company have agreed to also add the hourly priced classes to the tariff language. Like Schedule RTOUP, these classes would be affected by the POR rate when applicable, but were not included in the tariff language for that section. For PEPCO, staff recommends the Commission accept the tariff revisions as revised by staff with an effective date of August 23, 2023. For Delmarva, staff recommends the Commission accept the proposed tariff revisions as filed with an effective date of August 23, 2023. Thank you. I'm available for questions.
Any questions? All right, so let's start with item 20. So I move that we accept the tariff revisions for filing with an effective date of August 23, 2023. Commissioner Sussman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbe.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. And then regarding item 22, I move that we accept the tariff revisions for filing as revised by staff with an effective date of August 23, 2023. Commissioner Sussman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbe.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye.
Mr. Chair, items number 21 and 23 are revised tariff pages from Delmarva Power and Light Company and Pepco Electric Power Company, updating their retail transmission rates.
Good morning again, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Anson Justy on behalf of staff. On July 6th, 2023, Delmarva Power and Light Company and Potomac Electric Power Company filed revisions to their retail transmission rates. Each year, utilities can file revisions to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to update their transmission rates according to a FERC-reviewed and accepted formula for calculating transmission cost of service. Both companies filed their transmission rate updates with FERC on May 12th, 2023, and they have been approved and in effect since June 1st, 2023. To incorporate these new transmission rates into its retail rates, the companies have filed their revisions with the Commission. For PEPCO, the transmission-only rate is increasing by 12.22% for residential customers. For a residential customer using an average of 811 kilowatt hours per month, this translates to an approximately $1.31 bill increase. Much of the increase in PEPCO's transmission rates is due to an anticipated increase in forecasted transmission additions for the coming year. For Delmarva, the transmission-only rate is increasing by 13.96% for residential customers. For a residential customer using 1,000 kilowatt hours per month, this would translate to an approximately $1.95 bill increase. Much of the increase in Delmarva's transmission rates is due to increases in anticipated income taxes and depreciation and amortization expenses. For Delmarva, staff recommends that the Commission accept the revised tariff pages for filing with an effective date of September 1st, 2023. For PEPCO, staff suggested a correction to an effective date, so staff recommends the Commission accept the proposed tariff revisions as revised by staff with an effective date of September 1st, 2023. Thank you.
Okay, so going to item 21, I move we accept the tariff revisions for filing with an effective date of September 1st, 2023. Commissioner Sussman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbe.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. And regarding item 23, I move that we accept the tariff revisions as revised by staff for filing with an effective date of September 1, 2023. Commissioner Sussman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbe.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Before I vote, I just, on this forecasted issue, I'm sorry, we never had a chance to hear from the company. Can I just understand why we're including a tariff now for something that's, in the future, and why are we, doing a tariff change for something that's just anticipated?
Well, first of all, good morning, Mr.
morning,
Chairman,
sorry.
Commissioner.
morning.
Matthew Seegers, appearing for both Delmarva Power and Pepco. Appearing with me is Mr. Lance Schaefer, who's our manager of rate administration. I'm going to turn that question over to him to see if he might be able to answer it, if I may.
Okay.
Certainly. Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. Oh, thank you very much. So this is part of the...
Actually, so
Oh, I'm sorry.
just state your name for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Lance Schaefer. I'm manager of rate administration. Good morning, everyone. At Pepco. So every time that they file that that wholesale rate, it's part of the formula rate. The infrastructure charges. These are regional enhancement transmission projects that we are required to do by PJM, and so those estimations are built into every filing we do there, and then they're translated into the retail rates every year in the same way. So the fact that that's happening this time around is no different than any other past filing that we do. We are literally taking that network transmission service rate, adjusting it slightly for the company's zones projects, and then translating that into retail rates.
Okay. And I understand these are largely at this point in the game are just passing through. I just was trying to understand exactly the process. So it's a formula rate, and at this point, nothing has, I guess there's been no protest or nothing has been brought to FERC.
It has been approved.
Even though this is prospective.
Right, it has been approved by
Okay,
FERC.
so it is in place.
Yes, sir. This is not something that we've added for the retail filing.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I vote aye.
I vote aye. And with that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.